Hey, Bev.
Hey, Sam and Lindsay.
Hey.
Oh, hey.
Well, Lindsay is from the rescue Chickens Matter, and we're so excited that she is joining us today.
Yes,
Yay.
welcome.
Now I'm super excited myself.
So, what you drinking over there, Sam?
Well, it almost overflowed on me, which is why I was so quiet. Like, I opened it, I was like, what the heck? It's been sitting here for like a half hour.
Well, clearly neither you or I know how to drink today because I almost just poured mine, like until it just started coming out over the edge of the glass. Apparently, my glass is smaller than my beer is today.
Well, what I am attempting to drink today is Muskegon's own Pigeon Hill Brewing Company's oatmeal cream pie.
Oh my gosh, that sounds so good.
That does sound
Yes.
really good. Wow.
It says ale with spices and oaty goodness, goodness. And it says on the bottom, always pure and without drugs or poisons.
Yay.
Well, that's always good.
I'm glad that they, confirmed that for me before I started to drink.
Yeah, I mean, because we always have to worry about drugs and poison being in on all of our stuff, right?
Yes. But what are you drinking, Bev?
So I am drinking a Blake's Hard Cider Company Great Lakes Coffee Infused Hard Cider.
That's one of the ones I brought you, isn't it?
Yes, it is one of the ones you brought me, and I took a good whiff of it first, and it smells delicious, like
Yeah.
coffee on top of coffee on top of coffee.
I might have to go back to the store and grab one of those because it does sound really good.
Yeah, you're gonna have to because I buy a lot of coffee beers, so I wasn't sure what a coffee hard cider would taste like. Was afraid it would be a little weird, because of like the appley, but it's just kind of like having a slice of apple pie and drinking coffee at the same time.
Oh, that
Yeah,
sounds lovely.
it is very lovely.
And what is Lindsay drinking over there?
I wish I was, but I am having coffee because I have a million
Ooh.
things to do after this with all of, with all of these birds, but I will
Yeah.
definitely probably be drinking wine later.
Well, what kind of coffee do you have? Do you know? Because Bev and I love coffee. It's
Well,
like,
we're rednecks, so
yeah.
the fanciest we get is Folgers Black Silk. That's our jam over
Oh.
here.
Folgers is good.
He makes it like gasoline, and it's amazing. Like that's just how he drinks coffee, and so I started drinking coffee like that. So
He's rubbed off on you a bit, huh?
pretty much, yeah.
Well, it sounds delicious. And our drinks this episode are sponsored by Montana Coombs from at Thimbleworks. So cheers, lady.
Cheers.
Cheers.
And Montana runs a shop over at thimbleworks.co, and she gives listeners of the podcast a coupon code for 10% off. So if you use the code Drink and Farm over at thimbleworks.co, you get 10% off your order. And she makes like chicken saddles and all sorts of awesome, cool things that are great for chicken keepers.
So we're super excited to have Lindsay on today. So Lindsay, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and how Chickens Matters came to be?
Okay, well, I'll make this into a short story. Um, my pretty much my entire life, I was in horses, and I was a roper. I did dressage through intermediate one. I rode recreationally and professionally for over 20 years.
Oh, wow.
I also dabbled in horse rescue. I used to go get them at the auctions and stuff, and like break them out or whatever, and then find them better homes. But in 2012, I had a dally accident and I ended up breaking my back.
Wow.
And after I broke my back, I tried to keep up with it, riding lessons and stuff. I couldn't. And so I ultimately ended up moving out of state anyway. So I made the decision to get rid of the horses, and I kind of like flew solo there for a few years. And to fast forward, I grew up in rodeo, but I also grew up in ranching and farming and processing animals and that sort of thing. So that's where I came from. I know how to I've done it. I've processed chickens, which is so ironic. And then my husband and I got birds, and we were going to kind of homestead, and we did that for a while, and that was fun. But then we got some rescues in. This was about 2.5 years ago, and their names were Lucy and Ethel.
Oh,
And we got them in, and they had a lot of issues, kind of a lot of what I see now. But at the time, I'd only known chickens as, on the farm, not so intimately like I've learned with caring for them and stuff when they have issues. So basically, we rehabbed them. Lucy was filleted on her side really bad, like her whole skin was hanging off, and I just kind of had to wing it and figure out how to do all of this. So after we saved them, we'd get in like a rescue, and then we'd get in like two more rescues, and it kind of built from there. But it wasn't until about a year ago that it used to be kind of like a side thing where we would take them in, and then in the process of that, like I got to the point where I just couldn't even eat anything with a face anymore because I was doing all of this work. So I was taking in the girls, and then we started getting in a lot of roosters. Um, and it kind of grew from there, but we never were on social media or anything. And I'm finding now that it has blown up since we decided to take it to like Instagram and stuff.
Oh, okay.
That's when it has really like blown up, which I kind of in a way wanted it to because I wanted to raise some awareness.
Mm-hmm.
But on the other hand, it's like, wow, there's a lot of chickens out there, like, that people have, get them and decide that once they're not a chick anymore or whatever the circumstance, boom, they don't want them anymore. And then it went from there. And in this whole long process, I went from like being a former rancher and rodeo person to being this vegan who saves chickens, which is hilarious in my opinion. And I always was more like a vegetarian, or like maybe a pescatarian or something, but I went full on hardcore. If it has a face, I can't touch it kind of thing. But yeah, so that's kind of where it started. And then I also started getting a lot of notoriety because I used to have a really influential Instagram account with my yoga. And I would do yoga with the chickens. So then it all like kind of like intertwined together, basically, right? So then I became this crazy chicken lady who also does yoga. And then here we are today with my life of nothing but chickens. I can't even walk outside without chickens everywhere. So,
Well, I mean, crazy chicken lady that also does yoga, that's not a terrible title to have, in my opinion.
no, I actually have a girlfriend right now trying to talk me into teaching yoga classes at my place and doing like chicken yoga.
Oh, that must be from First Lady's farm sanctuary.
No, I saw them. It's funny because maybe that's where my friend got the idea, but I saw they were looking for a yoga teacher, but they're down in Tampa. I actually have a bird from them.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and I actually the big group of girls that I got from, they're really good ladies. They do a lot of good work. The big group of girls that I went and picked up from that commercial farm, the egg layers, a couple of weeks ago, where I shoved like 36 into my SUV.
Yeah, I saw that.
She came and picked up 26 of them.
Oh.
The First Lady's farm. So they came and picked up 26 of them, and then I kept 10 here because they have a bigger place than me. But they're like 2.5, 3 hours away from me. So it's like they kind of cover their area and then I cover mine. And then Bernie is a rooster from Ybor City that I took from them for retirement to live here until his last days because he's very old and he was set on fire at one point.
Oh my God.
Yeah, and he's the sweetest guy, but he already had one bad eye, and since we've had him, like his other eye was iffy, and it just seems like with age he's kind of starting to, like he doesn't see quite as well. So, but he lives in our front yard most of the time. He hangs out with the kids and stuff, so he's good. But yeah, no, they're good people. They do a lot of good work. And they kind of like let me know, and I let them know if we have birds that are like not going to work in my situation or vice versa kind of thing. So
That's awesome. It's great to have friends that do what you do. It was funny when you mentioned chickens and yoga. I was like, oh, I've seen that recently on Instagram, and there's only one place I could have seen that at because I only followed you two chicken rescues. I was like, it must have been.
Right. Well, yeah, I used to have the hashtag chickens and yoga, which is funny, and then I kind of like don't use it anymore. But yeah, for the longest time, I had the hashtag for that, and I think I was probably one of the only people who ever did it. So, as far as, like, I don't know how many other people do yoga with chickens. I'm sure it'll become a thing, like goat yoga, but...
Well, I mean, if you thought getting pooped on by a goat during yoga was bad, wait until you get pooped on by a chicken while doing yoga.
Yes, yeah. That's kind of my stance too with goat yoga. I think goats are wonderful, but I don't know if I want to do that. You know, as someone who has been doing yoga for so long, you know, it might be cute to an extent, kind of thing, right? But yeah, I don't know if I really want to get pooped all over. So.
Well, it's funny that you mentioned that just recently, like since you hit social media, it seems like there's been more need for chicken rescues. Like, do you feel like there has been like a real uptick in chickens being abandoned or like needing rescue? Is this like a new thing, or is it just like,
That's
because
actually a good question because it's hard for me to discern if I'm only noticing it more now, if that makes sense. Or if, you know what I mean? Like, am I noticing it more now, or is it truly a thing, right? Where more birds need help, or have they always needed help, but nowadays people are kind of like stepping up and trying to help them, if that makes sense.
yeah, just like more aware of them. Because I was wondering if it was just like how when you're thinking of like buying a car, suddenly that kind of car like shows up on the road like all over the place
Yes,
and it's
I
everywhere,
do
but you
know
don't
that.
see it until you think about it. I was wondering if like because now I have chickens and I have like a farm, am I just noticing an uptick in abandoned farm animals because I care more,
Right.
or like yeah, or is it really like rising?
Right, and but I think it is though to an extent because I have noticed even, you know, even before I went really big on the social media, I'd be scrolling through my personal Facebook or whatever, and you see a lot more T-shirts of like chickens and this kind of thing and that kind of thing, and it's even at Walmart you can go buy like farm fresh egg signs and stuff. So my general thought is that it becomes a good idea in the moment for people. You know what I mean? And then they realize that a chicken is a huge commitment. I mean, even if you like, even down to the bareness, if you want to like have them just for meat production, they still, for those 7 to 10 weeks or however long you keep them, depending on what you're processing, you have, things you encounter, as you ladies know. You can encounter like all kinds of diseases and issues and worms and I mean, it's just the list goes on, and a lot of times I find that people get them, and then they're like, "Holy crap, what did I do?" You know, and
Yeah.
then they don't know what to do at that point, and then they end up here.
And egg
So
laying chickens, they're adorable when they're baby chicks, but then you have like that 10 weeks of in between where they're not chicks anymore, but they're not really like full
they're not
grown
chickens. Yeah,
chickens.
they're furry dinosaurs at that point.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
and they're not laying eggs for you yet. So I think people forget like how long the process really is. And sometimes like, the shine can wear off before
Yes.
you've gotten into like the really good part. 'Cause I love baby chicks and I love raising baby chicks, but yeah, like the in between it kind of loses its luster. It's like, yeah, they can't go in with the big chickens yet because the big chickens will eat them because that's what
Right.
chickens do. So they have to stay in a brooder, and you've got to keep the brooder clean so that nobody gets sick, and you got to keep the heat lamp at the right height, and you got to keep backing it up so you're not cooking your chickens. And it's like, oh my gosh, taking care of these is like a full-time job.
Oh, it is. Yeah. In fact, people look at me sideways because don't get me wrong, I think chicks are adorable. But if you ask me what I would prefer, it would not be chicks. I mean, because they're a lot of work. And then I look at all the chickens we have in here at the rescue, and I'm like, God, if they were all babies, how horrible would this be? Because
Oh,
really,
yeah.
I would have what, like 50 brooders, and it's just like it'd be a constant heated poop party, basically. You
Pretty
know,
much.
so it's like when I do get chicks, and I'm like, oh man, like don't get me wrong, I love them and I think they're adorable and I play with them, but it's like, geez, Louise. You guys,
Yeah.
like, can't you just poop where you're supposed to? That's that sort of thing.
Nope, it has to be in the water dish and in the food
Yes.
dish and on their friend's head.
At least
And
it's not just me, like,
no.
because I wondered. I was like, what am I doing wrong here?
No, it's like it's one of those things. Well, taking care of any baby animal, like my baby goats were the same way. Like I had to obsess over them because I was worried that they were like fragile and gonna get sick. It turns out they were totally fine. But then they also needed bottles 4 times a day. And
Oh,
when we had a
wow.
really big cold snap come in, I had to make sure that they were warm enough. So yeah, it's part of taking care of any baby animal. It's just that like, that cute factor kind of gets you in and you're like, yay, yay, all the cuteness. And you're like, oh wait, I forgot how exhausting this is.
It is. It's really kind of like having a newborn baby.
Yeah.
Like it really is.
I mean, for much shorter, thankfully, but
Yeah, well, yes, thankfully. Well, and I find too here, like when we do get babies in, it was different when Dan was around, but Dan really liked babies, but I kind of like integrate them a little earlier, I think, than most people do. But that's usually because like I brood them inside a pen within itself, if that makes sense. So like they a lot of times like once they get to a certain age, they brood already in a coop where everybody sees them every day. They just can't touch them.
Mm-hmm.
And
oh
then by the
yeah.
time that I'm ready to kind of let them out, I just make them their own tiny door where if they had to get away from a big hen, then the hen can't fit in there. So they like can run and get away from them. So usually about like 7 or 8 weeks, I let the babies in, and I guess I'm lucky with the group that I use, but the hens that I have that do that, they never bother them.
Oh,
Oh,
that's
wow.
awesome.
Like every once in a while, I'll get one who's like, don't, she's like Granny, she's like, don't you do that, and she chases them everywhere. But for the most part, I don't get too many, that are aggressive towards the babies. Roosters included, actually. A lot of my roosters are pretty good with babies too. So,
Oh, that's awesome. That's so good to hear. Well, and speaking of like chickens as pets, like do you find that there's been a lot of roosters just like being abandoned and whatnot?
yes.
So do you have more roosters than hens?
No,
Oh,
I do
okay, good.
not. And I actually am very fortunate in that I have about a 98% rehome rate on rehomable roosters.
Oh,
Oh,
wow.
good.
Yeah, so, but that's a lot of work involved in that because um, roosters, here's my thing with roosters. The reason I'm one of the few people in my state, First Ladies is another one who takes roosters, but very few rescues of any kind take them.
Hmm.
They're so broadly misunderstood. 90% of their issues are the way that they're raised from a chick up, right? And I find that from my own experience too with raising roosters, if you treat them like your little cuddle waddle baby, every once in a while you'll get a cool Instagram rooster who is really cool and lives in the house. 90% of the time, they have no boundaries by the time they get to the age that you don't want to mess with them, right? And then they end up being so like I'm not being sympathetic to them in the sense I do understand we'll get to that there are mean roosters out there. But the general rooster, if you really coddle them when they're a tiny little hatchling all the way up and you don't ever enforce those boundaries or like you see behaviors you think are cute, but they really if the bird were bigger would not be cute. And then all of a sudden you've got this rooster who doesn't know any better, like he's just like doing his thing and you're mad at him and beating him with a broom because he's, being a rooster or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And so I get a lot of those where I get the rooster in and then it turns out that after a couple of weeks, and sometimes I throw him in with an older roo I already have to kind of beat the crap out of him. I'm just being honest.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
If they have super bad manners with hens. 9 times out of 10, they're okay. And then the other issue is always that people get chicks from Tractor Supply, or, like feed stores, or they get chicks from the newspaper or whatever, and then they bring them home and they raise them or hatch them, and then they're like, crap, well, I hatched all these eggs and I have 3 hens and 15 roosters.
Yeah, because hatch rates are never like 50-50, right?
Yes. So like I actually tried to hatch just to see what it was like and I was horrible at it. So I just gave up. But yeah, so those roosters too, what happens to them is you get them, you make the conscientious choice to buy life or create it. And then you're like, well, what do I do with all these roosters? And then I see them on Craigslist, for $20 a bird. Well, newsflash, nobody's going to pay $20 for your rooster because you can go online and get 50 roosters for free if you really had to have one.
Right.
Right. So there's always that. And then here with Easter coming, you're about to see a lot more roosters on the groups and stuff on social media because people go get chicks for their kids or whatever, and then either they realize it's a rooster or they get the chicks and 10 days later the kids don't want them anymore. And then you got even more roosters. But right now on the farm we have 10. A few weeks ago we had 15, I believe, roosters. And we've had, like, it depends on the time of year and stuff. We've had up to 20 roosters at one time.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, and then it's me and them, you know. Got to walk out there and deal with it either way.
Right. Yeah.
I mean? It's like walking into Jurassic Park, you know.
Well, how do you keep the peace with so many roosters?
Well, I have a whole system. So, you know, we lost Dan recently, but I have a whole system with my older guys who are already established. This is their farm, right? And so when the new boys come in, I put them in like what I call a bachelor pad.
Okay.
And I just interact with them, and sometimes the older teenagers interact with them. And they stay in this pen, and I watch how they interact with one another, and I watch how they interact with human beings. And then I watch how they interact through the hardware cloth fencing that I put them in so that nobody can fight, you know, or anything like that. Because when I free range the other roosters, they can see the new guys, right? So everybody can see each other. And I just watch them, and then I know it seems crazy animal chicken, you know, crazy chicken lady or whatever of me, but I watch them. I spend like a good week or two because I feel like they deserve that. And see if their issues are like genetic. Maybe they're just a full-on asshat, no offense. Or maybe they just, you know, don't know any better. And when I decide if they're people friendly and they're cool, then that's when I start to figure out whose personality they would fit with what rooster I already have.
Okay.
And I pretty much have a rooster across the board. I have one that I only put other roosters with him if they've really been a bad kid, you know, because he's the one who's like, okay, this is my farm. This is not happening. And then I have ones that are kind of neutral. I have a lot of roosters who are just like, yeah, whatever, come on in. It's cool. You know, but yeah, so I just kind of integrate them by personality, and usually, like, literally 9 times out of 10, they're okay. You know, like, everybody's okay. The hens beat them up more than the other roosters do.
Yeah, we have heard that story. Sam's got a good story of a rooster that almost got eaten by his flock when he was introduced wrong, right? Is that how that went? I can't remember.
Yeah, so basically what had happened was I gave her like a couple of hatching or chicks that I just hatched, and then she had a very small coop that had all females in it, and she put him in there and they scalped him.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, so I was like, and she lives in a city, so she's not allowed to have a rooster, so I swapped her like a regular hen.
Right.
For the rooster, and he lives here. His name is Cluck Norris.
Oh,
I
that's
love
so
Cluck
cute.
Norris.
Yeah, and he was eyeballing me today too. He's not the one that got me today. So.
Oh, geez, yeah. So you got flogged today, did you?
Oh yeah, I did by Diablo.
Well, I mean, his name.
I
Yeah,
was gonna say
like,
that's kind of an offensive name, you know.
well, he's a Polish rooster. He's got like a split horn, so it looks like
Aw.
he's got double horns.
Oh, I love
and he's
it.
very handsome. And he used to be super sweet, but he started getting sassy around that 8-9 month range, which is usually when I notice
Yeah.
like a
Yeah.
hormone surge.
That's when their reds. Their legs turn red.
They are like
yeah.
ready to bang, and they are ready to defend, and they got all these hormones. So it's like it's acceptable for a while because I know that they're going through that. But now it's because it's warm out and it's spring, so now I'm keeping an eye on all of them because we have multiple roosters too.
Yeah.
And they do coexist usually pretty well. But he's just got an attitude, and I was just going like wasn't even like walking towards him, and he just like reared up and got me right on the forearm. He drew blood today, so he needs to watch himself.
Buy a pool noodle. That's what I do.
A pool noodle.
A pool noodle. I have it on my website. When you go into my website under education, I have a whole thing about rooster resources and how to deal with your aggressive rooster. And
I'll have to check that out.
I'll tell you real quick though, like I find that first of all, pool noodle is soft, and if you have to bop them one, you're not going to hurt them or break their back, or you know what I mean? Like, because I've heard stories of people hitting them with a broom and hurting them and stuff.
Oh yeah.
I take a pool noodle. This is even more crazy. Okay, so just envision me doing this. So I take a pool noodle and the ones that are very frontally aggressive, because roosters fight from the front, right?
Mm-hmm.
So like if you're dealing with them and you're trying to get through to their little mind how things work, if you're chasing them and they're running from you, they literally will still turn around and attack you the next day, because that's not how they are combative, right?
Right.
So I take a pool noodle and I let them come at me stupid, and I jab them in the chest with that pool noodle. And I'm like, I swear to God, I jab them and I'm like, no. And I get really loud and obnoxious, like that annoying person you hate. You know, it's just like, no, you don't do that. And I bop them in the chest, and I'm telling you, their little faces, they're like, what just happened?
Aww.
Like, seriously. So, and I don't even have to carry the pool noodle everywhere. It's not like a temporary fix. It's just an extension of my arm. I probably learned this from working with horses, you know. It's an extension of my arm. And I can jab them the same as they would fight each other, you know? They hit each other full front on.
Yeah.
And so when they want to come at me stupid, I'm going to bop them with that pool noodle. And 9 times out of 10 again, once or twice, they're like, okay, this isn't even worth it.
Oh, that's interesting.
You know, the only time that I've ever had one that was overtly like pushy is one that ended up being genetically just not wired right.
Oh,
like most of the time they get it. They're like, okay, I'm sorry, you know. But, then, you know, that excludes the ones that are like literally just aggressive beyond belief, which I've had a few of those as well. But yeah, just get you a pool noodle. Just tap him right there in the chest and be like, I don't think so, dude. Because he'll be like, I don't know what this is, this black magic, but I'm not doing this anymore. I swear to you, it works.
Black
magic. I'll have to try that. I've done the thing before where we have a lavender Orpington, and last year he was very hormonal and he got punted across the coop. Because he's a big boy. Like, those Orpingtons are no joke.
Yeah.
And I felt so bad because it's like that could have gone so wrong. So it's nice to know that a pool noodle can be equally as effective.
Well, it gives you some distance between you and them too, right? Because you always hear the whole, you know, the old stories about, you know, grandma chasing the rooster around with a broom. But the reality is you hit a rooster with something that hard, and there may, you know, you might hit them too hard or whatever, and then, you know, that's it. And then you're like, oh crap, what have I done? Right. So I'm not against bopping, you know, giving them a good bop or a good what for, but I just try not to do it in a way that it could like physically harm them, you know.
Absolutely.
It's more an ego shot, really. So
So what I've got going on in my head right now is scooping up the bad roos and bopping them on the head.
Yeah, we start calling him little fluffy roo-roo or something. That's cute, actually.
We just wrote a song. You're welcome.
Yeah, right? That's awesome.
Oh, so are there some roosters that are just like so bad there's just no getting through to them? Because I know like every animal has its personality, right? So it's not necessarily like a reflection on the chicken keeper if you end up with a roo that you just can't handle. Like there are some hens that like you just can't handle.
No, that is true. And that's where it gets kind of funny, because I know I run a rescue and I try to, like, obviously I pool noodles and everything. I try to give everybody a chance. But definitely you will sometimes get in, and I'm talking beyond the breed or beyond environment. You will get in roosters or hens, actually, that are just not wired right. It happens with everybody. It happens with dogs, you know, like they just aren't wired right. Mm-hmm. And the problem is, you know, if it were like a dog or even a horse or something, there's a lot more resources and a lot more people willing to rally around that and help, you know. Mm-hmm. When you've got a rooster whose odds are already against him because he's a rooster, so, you know, and you're looking at like the quality of life for that bird if you have one that's legitimately, and when I say aggressive, I mean we had one here that was full on drawing blood, attacking anything and everything in his path. And
Wow.
we gave him, I think it was 4 months. It was a
Wow,
long
that's a
time.
long time.
And my husband even went out of his way to build him. It was the first concept that we started doing that, where instead of them always being cooped up, no pun intended, they would have like a side yard with like a guardrail across, but they would have sunshine, and they could like be outside and everything because we're in Florida. This guy, we made the side yard and he started jumping out of that also, like climbing it just to attack people.
Oh my God.
And he did it a couple times, got my husband, got me several times. In fact, we were leaving for my wedding anniversary getaway last year, and he filleted my leg, the whole back of my calf, with his spur.
Oh.
He was just, he was a monster. And it's like we tried everything. We tried giving him more space. We tried everything I could think of. And then finally I put him down because the last straw was we made the fence higher even to keep him in there. And he got out and attacked my autistic 3-year-old daughter.
Oh,
And
geez, yeah.
that was the final straw. And I said, okay. So, then I kind of made a policy with the rescue that, yeah, I'll take your rooster and I'll give your rooster about a month. But if your bird is dangerous, in fact, if you look on my website under rooster resources, it says, we will not rehome Hannibal Lecter for you.
Yeah.
Like it flat out says that. So if your bird is aggressive, and I actually have too on the website, resources on your options if you just can't keep your rooster, including like humane euthanasia and stuff like that, if anybody's interested. It's on there. But yeah, but that does happen. Now, hens, I've had some hens that are just not nice. I can't say I've ever had one I would have to have them euthanized for that. But I have had some hens that have definitely had to have special living conditions because they are just like not nice. Like they just don't want friends. They're like my spirit animal.
Oh, I love it. Yeah, no, that's good to know about roosters, that there are humane options. I always really loved what my mind just totally blanked on what her Instagram handle is at the moment. When she used to hatch, she used to do like hatching eggs, and then she would sell the chicks, and they were sex linked so that she could pick the roosters out
Right.
if people just wanted hens, and she would raise the roosters in a separate coop until they were of like a good enough size that they were good for like making dog food, and then
Right.
she would make them into food for her dogs. And she had a really great process that involved like some petting and some music, and made it something that was not like a horrible end. And I can
Right.
totally get behind that, because like the rooster then has like a purpose that fulfills like the circle of life, but also got to live like a really good life in a really good place until that time
Right.
came, but didn't end up like dumped in the middle of a street somewhere because somebody couldn't keep a rooster.
No, exactly. And like I said, I came from farming, so I was very much the same way, actually. Like I appreciate all life, and when I did eat meat, I was very much the same mindset. And as a person who rescues chickens daily, I would rather see someone do that. Hate mail, come on, but I'd rather see someone do that than, like you said, dump a bird out on the road or put them on Craigslist for whoever to pick them up. You know what I mean? And you don't know where they're going. And I know a lot of people too, they raise these birds and they get emotionally invested in them, and then they find out they can't keep a rooster, and then they're very limited to what they can do, and they're afraid to take every option, if that makes sense, right?
Yeah.
Because the reality is too, like, I think me and First Ladies may be the only real bigger chicken rescue in our state even. So, like, between us, then what do? You can't, like, bring me 50 roosters. I can't take them. They can't take them. So
Right.
it's like, people have to like make plans for this stuff before. So I think your friend, like, it sounds like that's at least a pretty good plan. At least they have a good life. And and they're not, being dumped off. Because let's face it, I can have a rescue in every state and I still can't cover as many chickens as there are.
Right.
I can't save every bird, so we all know they're going to get eaten. I mean, that's just life. We try to save the ones we can, and then, it just is what it is.
Yeah. And, so taking on as many chickens as you do, like you mentioned earlier to us, I don't think it was on the podcast, but somebody had just like dropped off, 26 chickens to you the other day?
Yesterday,
How do you handle, yesterday, that's what it was. Oh my gosh. Yeah. How do you handle biosecurity for taking in new chickens with already having so many?
Well, what we do is we use, first of all, hardwire cloth on the outside of all chicken coops. That way it's small enough to where there really can't be too much contact. I'd have to post a picture of it, but it's basically like a double layer wire, right? So, and then I figure out what coop they're going to go into. This was very last minute, so they went into a coop, but it was very last minute. I actually had to add purchase to it today because I was not prepared for that. Anyway, so they go in, and it's depending on where they come from, depends on the extent of the biosecurity that I do. Believe it or not, commercial laying hens get less biosecurity for us than privately owned birds.
Oh, wow.
Well, I could believe that because commercial farm hens, like they were kept inside a building and they're pretty disease free, right?
Yes. Well, the thing with them too is that they're NPIP, which is Natural Poultry Improvement Plan certified, if they're a commercial bird. They're generally USDA inspected. So a lot of the bigger like Merricks and influenzas and stuff, that would be X'd out immediately because they get tested, so regularly. But also with them, my biosecurity more with the commercial hens is keeping them away from everybody else. Not because there's anything wrong with them, but because they've been so isolated that they have no immunity to a lot of things that your hardier backyard chickens have immunity to.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, because they've been so isolated. I mean, a lot of the girls that we get in, they've never even seen sunshine. They always have a roof over where they live, whether it's solid walls or it's hardwire. They don't know what sunshine is, so they've never been out, so they've never gotten into situations where they were exposed to anything. Like their whole life has been, perch, nest box, that's it. Whereas privately owned birds, I have no idea, like these 26 that came in, they're all in quarantine for 30 days, minimum. But I already have a couple of them who are showing signs of just distress, right? And then a lot of them too were just poorly kept, so they're they needed to be soaked and all that stuff, and a lot of them have like back end issues and things. But I just tend to find more issues in my privately owned forfeits than I ever do in the commercial birds. The commercial birds, the worst thing with them is they're generally so henpecked from boredom that a lot of them just have no feathers and then like prolapse vents. But other than that, nothing too crazy. So, but I basically just isolate everybody for 30 days. And then anybody who free ranges, I do temporary pens set up where they can go out and go on grass and then go back into their coop so they don't have access to anybody else.
Okay.
Yeah, that's really interesting about the commercial hens. I'm sure that that's going to surprise a lot of people, not just Sam and I.
Yeah. Yeah. And I try to be careful about what I like, because I'm not out to bash, obviously, the USDA or anything, right? It's more just with the commercial hens, what I do openly say all the time is know where your eggs truly come from. And the birds that you see that are quote unquote organic or cage free, they're cage free in the sense that they're not in battery cages, but they are still confined to beyond a reasonable capacity for their mental well-being, in my opinion. And in the opinion of several big organizations, so but if you buy eggs at the grocery store, now they have this new thing that's amazing, and it's called Humane certified. And pretty much, I think even you guys probably don't have Publix, but like even any of your chain grocery stores where y'all are at, and you don't need to buy eggs, but if you have friends who do, there's a thing now called Humane Certified, and all of those eggs come from hens who live on pasture.
Oh, that's
Yeah,
super cool. I didn't know
yeah,
about that.
all free range, like truly free range, not like free range where they get like one little side yard on a big warehouse. Like literally, they live in pastures, and it's pretty reasonably priced too. That was something I just recently heard about through a few networks that I'm involved in, and I thought that was pretty neat.
I just pictured something in my head and it made me laugh, but it's totally not funny. But it's like you label egg cartons free range and it's like a giant warehouse full of chickens. And then there's this like beautiful outside area, but the door is so small that the
That's
chickens like, can't actually get out of
what
it.
it is.
Yeah. That was what I
Yeah.
just pictured in my head from what you said.
Yeah, that's actually exactly what it is, and I have it all in resources on my site, but I believe that the protocol for that is the warehouse, and they have to have access to one open door and one open window. And so if you think about it, if you have 1,000 birds in a warehouse and a 12-foot by 12-foot space outside, who's going to get out? The dominant hens, right? Like
Yeah.
there's no way they're all going to get out there. But that really is the standard right now for that, which I'm trying to help change that with a few people that I'm working with, but right now that is the standard for commercial birds. So
Well, that's awesome that you're trying to make a difference with it, though. So, like, not only do you rescue chickens, but you're actively trying to make like the lives of commercial hens like better where they're at. Because, yeah, like you
yes.
said, you're limited on space, so you can't save all the birds.
No, I wish I
personally.
could. My husband, I'd get a divorce probably, but I mean, I wish I wish I could though. I really do. I wish I could. But no, I would like to see things become more humane for everybody, for meat birds, um, all poultry, especially. Not because I don't care about cows and pigs and stuff, just because poultry seem to be more forgotten because they're not as cute by the public standard, you know? So I feel like they need a little bit of a voice, but it's not so much me being against people eating them or getting eggs. It's me wanting to see them at least be treated fairly, like your friend does, right? You know, from start to finish, at least make sure that the bird lived a good life, you
Yeah,
know?
totally. That totally makes sense. Well, do you have any advice for anybody that would be interested in starting up a chicken rescue?
Well, have
Don't
the
do it. No, just
space.
kidding.
No, I would say have a lot of patience and give up getting your nails done or anything, and you know, fully expect to look like you have some sort of issue because like you have cuts all over your entire body all the time from like everything from beaks to wings to spurs. And but no, truly though, if you want to get into it, I got into it accidentally, so I truly don't have a good answer for that, except if it's in your heart and you really want to, if you really love chickens and you want to help them, do it. But don't overwhelm yourself, and also make darn sure that you are within your legal limits and code enforcement, because I've known people too who have tried to set up sanctuary for chickens and then find out they can't even have them where they live.
Oh
You
my
know,
gosh.
yeah, so
Jeez.
yeah, nowadays too, code enforcement's getting so weird with chickens that you could live in a quote unquote agricultural area and end up not even being allowed to have birds. But no, if anybody wants to help chickens. And the other thing you can do is if you want to foster chickens, if I'm allowed to plug this,
Oh, yeah.
if you want to foster chickens and you live anywhere in the United States of America, please contact me because I am trying to set up a national database because we get emails from people from all over and we're in Florida. We're trying to set up a national database where people can find help if they have to rehome their flock. And I want to set it up to where if you're interested in fostering like that, that I would screen everybody first and make sure that you have the facility and you know that that's like the birds you want to take and then go from there. So if anybody's interested in doing that, let me know because I would love to be able to help people in other states. You know, I only have like 5 or 6 people right now willing to do it.
Yeah, we'll put links to everything that we talk about here during this episode in the show notes. So
Okay.
there will be a link specifically labeled like how you can help foster chickens or something to that
Yes,
effect, so
yeah, and I
that
have it
so
on
people
the
can have
website
it.
as well. So the direct link is on the website as well. I think it's under community resources is what it's under.
Okay, perfect. And so speaking of rehoming chickens, are you finding that people are rehoming chickens often because of like what did you say, like building code enforcement or like not
Yeah,
being allowed to
county.
keep?
Yeah, yes. Here, county restrictions. Yeah.
Okay.
Where and sometimes it's their fault, and sometimes it's the county being assholes. It's
Yeah.
like here in my town, more into like the townier part of town because we're out in the country part. Um, People had chickens here for 100 years at least. This is an old town, and they passed an ordinance where they couldn't have backyard chickens anymore,
Mm.
and a lot of
That's like
people lost their
the opposite
birds.
of what most people are doing.
Yeah, well, it's crazy because a lot of these areas, and they're already hyper restricted. You can only have hens, you can only have 4 or 5. But even the people who were following that, they took their birds as well. And that was a big thing, and it's happening all over, at least in Florida. But the other thing is that people do get the certification to have chickens, and they're supposed to have 5, and then they turn around and have 20 of them.
Oh, jeez.
And eventually a neighbor's going to complain because even without a rooster, hens can be to me louder than a rooster.
Yeah.
Yeah, they can.
Yeah, because when my hens get going, like it's like magnified by 66 right now. So
Well, like, have you ever heard an egg song? Like, one chicken starts and then the whole backyard goes off. And you're like,
yes, and
oh,
that's why
ladies, I get it.
that's why I don't understand how people hide 20 chickens in their backyard in the suburbs for any amount of time because when one chicken in my yard lays an egg, everyone tells me, including the roosters. Like everybody tells me. So I go out there for one egg. So it's like
They're so proud of themselves.
they are. They come up to my front porch and everything and tell me. So everybody is. I have a rooster who screams like a rabbit every time a hen lays an egg.
Oh my gosh.
So I'll have to get a video of that. He screams like how rabbits scream if they get hurt or whatever. It's exactly what he sounds like.
Yeah, it sounds like a lady like being stabbed.
Yes. The first few times I heard it, I thought something was happening out in the back, and I was like, "Oh, it's just him." Okay.
Well, we all know that chicken feed and chicken care costs money. So let's talk about how you raise funds for your rescue.
Okay.
Because you do some really cool stuff. Like, in fact, I have one of them hanging on my wall. I have a super cool
I
shirt
forgot
on my
about
way.
that.
Yeah.
You bought the good vibes picture. Thank you, by the way.
I did. Yeah. And I ordered one of your
The chakra balancing chickens. Yes.
I'm so
Yes.
excited about that. I don't get to do a lot of yoga right now because of my back issues, but I meditate like no other at the moment. So I'm like,
That's
I can
awesome.
still use that.
Well, when I designed the chicken chakra shirt, I was like, I need something. Like, I have yoga shirts with chickens, but like, no, I need something cool. And I was like, let me design. So I designed like the chakra chicken thing. But I'm so glad you got that. But yeah, we do take cash donations, but I kind of am one of those people where I'm like really proud. And I feel like I should give you something in exchange for helping our rescue. So, because of that is why on our website, chickensmatter.org, I not only do I design all the t-shirts, and all of those, by the way, are my designs, because I do digital art. I do the t-shirts, but I also do hand-painted portraits of pets. It doesn't have to be chickens. I have examples on the website. I do pet portraits. I also paint anything you can think of. Signs, custom signs, wine glasses, pretty much anything. Yeah, like I basically do just sell art. And then the other thing that we started doing recently is, which is only local right now, obviously, but we do community eggs. And we do get donations from that, but it's mostly just to give back to our town because we have some impoverished people here. So all of my excess eggs, which is a lot, I have a little stand outside my house and I put the eggs in cartons and people come take them for free. And then they leave donations if they have the means, and if they don't, that's fine too. But yeah, so that's pretty much it. I do custom art and eggs. That's
Well,
pretty much
and
what I
there's an
do.
option for people to become a monthly supporter, right? On your
Yes.
website?
Yes, that's for the permanent residents. I believe it's $2 a month.
Okay.
And it's per, like, so, like, if you want it, and it's funny you mentioned that because I actually went through and did a name tally today of everybody, which was almost impossible. And I'm actually going to set it up too on the website where you can pick which bird you want to sponsor because I know Joy is very popular. The blind one, the
Oh
blind hen.
yeah.
Yeah. And a lot of people write in and they'll even put a note when they donate. They're like, I want to sponsor Joy, you know, every month. But
And
I'm
you're
gonna
like, I
set
have
it.
like 80 other chickens too, but okay.
Yeah, no, but I think it's cute though because she really is so special, But it's so funny because she really was not the prettiest thing when she came in. She looked like a chicken that had come right off the rotisserie. It was really bad. And
Oh.
she had no feathers. I don't know if you guys remember her, but she's got like one of her eyes is obviously doesn't work and the other one's gone. And she was henpecked really bad by other hens and she lost her eyes. So we've had her for about 6 months now. But anyway, yeah, so you can sponsor a bird like her for $2 a month. You can also do this thing we have called Buy a Bag, and it's $10, and then will it send you a receipt of the feed, right? So you can click on Buy a Bag and donate $10, and then when I go to the feed store the next day or two, I'll even send you a receipt and show you that, that's what it went to. But just stuff like that, because we really, it's not about me, becoming Tammy Faye Baker and like making a bunch of money off not profit. It's,
Yeah.
we do obviously really need help, but we also try to give back so that we don't feel like we're just taking things from people, if that makes sense.
Well, taking care of the chickens is giving back. I mean, having a service like this for when you do end up with that rooster that you can't keep, or your HOA does change the rules, or your county changes the rules,
Right.
like it's a really important resource, and it's a resource that is very much needed, whether people necessarily see the value in it right away or not. And it's hard
Right.
work that you guys do. Like, I mean, I don't have a ton of chickens here, but like when there's an illness or the coop needs to be cleaned or stuff needs to be done, like time has to be set aside out of the day to do that. So in order to facilitate a rescue, like it can be seen as a job, like for sure.
Yes. Well, thank you.
Yeah, and it shouldn't be like looked down on or like downplayed just because it's good work.
I guess
Like,
it's my modesty, right? I'm
yeah.
just like, that's just how I am. I'm like, well, like, it's like, with the donations, I'll post and say, and trust me, we appreciate them and people have been so good to us. It's just one of those things where it's like, I want to do this because I love the birds and I don't want people to think you know what I'm saying? Like, that's just like me as a human being, I guess. I'm just very,
Yeah.
well, if I can make you like a rad t-shirt, that's even better, or like whatever, right? To like compensate for everything. But no, it is a lot of work. And in fact, after I'm done with this, I'm going to go clean coops and that is no picnic.
No.
No.
Let me tell you. And then I find eggs everywhere too because nobody wants to lay their eggs and all the beautiful things I build for them. No, everybody wants to pop a squat and lay an egg in the middle of the play yard, and then I have to go in there and get it, and then everybody comes and swarms me because they think I have food, and it's just a nightmare. Like, it just really is. One day, y'all are going to see me on the news trampled by chickens.
Trampled by Chickens would make an awesome band name. Someone do
Oh
it.
my gosh, it
Yeah.
would. That's like kind of 90s grungy kind of
Yeah,
trampled by
absolutely.
chickens. That's pretty good. Like I'm an old Alice in Chains kind of gal, so that's an actually pretty good name. That's pretty cool.
So, one of the things we always like to ask everybody that we interview, because we do like to tell farm stories at the end of our regular episodes when people send them in. Do you have any like hilarious or weird or just like funky stories that you can share, like from your chicken rescue adventures?
I can. Well, I'm trying to think of who I can talk about that wouldn't be sad, So
Aw.
I'm thinking more. Well, the roosters. I know you guys heard about that. Did you guys hear about the two roosters?
Did you have two roosters that got stolen?
Yes, I can talk
Oh
about that, and I'll just
no.
keep it as
Oh yeah, no, you know what? You should tell that, even though it's not gonna be
yes.
like it's not gonna be a funny story, obviously. Yeah, but no, it's an important story.
But yeah, so I was trying to think of stories. I'm like, well, I got lots of little stories, but that was a big one. So I think it's been about 2 weeks now, 2.5 weeks. we live in a pretty small community, but we do have a pretty prevalent issue with we live on a major county road, so people go up and down, you know. Well, anyway, I never leave my property, like ever. And I had to go and actually pick up some hens. So I was gone for a couple of hours, and I had left everybody locked in the coops. By locked, I mean just latched. At the time, I didn't have locks on them. And I came back, and our most favorite rooster, little Dan, was gone out of the coop, and so was Lemmy. And Lemmy is this like goofy, cross-eyed Easter egger. So I'm not. He's so cute, but he's, you know, I mean, I could see Dan if somebody thought he was worth money because he was a gold duckling bantam, you know. But the other one, I mean, I guess he's pretty. But anyway, so they were gone, and at first I was like, okay, well maybe I'm wrong. So I'm going through and I'm checking to see if they like escaped and I did something wrong, you know. And then it was a few hours later, after my husband got home, that we realized someone had stolen them. So we're in a local group in our community on Facebook and stuff just for our town, and I posted on there. Well, I think I may have made a mistake in the sense that I made it too public, right? So everybody in town knew about it. And
Oh.
so I believe it was, yeah, it was the next day. I was kind of, meandering around, and I would keep coming out and I would keep checking to see if they came back, and I would keep checking the coops. Went and bought padlocks for all the coops and stuff. And it was so weird because I was home, and at 2 o'clock I checked on the birds. I brought the kids inside. At 4:30 I came out, and Dan was deceased.
Oh.
And someone had
Oh.
thrown him back in front of his own coop.
Oh.
But it was recent, right? I'm not going to get too graphic or anything, but it was recent and it was very bad. And it was not an animal attack by
Oh
any
my God.
any matter of means. It was not. And it was a big process. We had to like call the police and everything and take pictures and stuff. So anyway, my husband buried him that night. It was actually his bird, and he was very upset. So he buried him that
Oh.
night. And I had given up hope on Lemmy. So I went about my business. We did hyper security on everything, which is so weird because in the town we live in, literally everybody loves us, you know. So we didn't get it. We didn't know if it was some crazy person or what, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So we did all this hyper security. Well, the following Friday after that, I had my youngest daughter out in the garden, and I heard all the hens were going nuts. So we went, we walked all around. I didn't see anything. Went back in the garden, and I was cutting chicken wire for the garden bedding and stuff. And I took the scrap metal to the scrap metal pile behind our barn, and there was Lemmy sitting there.
Aw.
But I thought he was dead, right? So I was like, oh, no way, you know? Well, I go over there and I realized that he was not. He was completely alive, but very lethargic. I was amazed that he made it back because I make fun of him, but he's actually just, he had a great owner, but it's just his personality. He's very timid and afraid of everything.
Mm-hmm.
And he was an owner forfeit. But anyway, I was amazed that he made it back. So I kept him in our bathroom in the shower for 3 days.
Aw.
And I had to give him subcutaneous fluids under his skin because he was so dehydrated. It was so bad. And but anyway, he's fine now. But yeah, someone came on our property and took two roosters, and they weren't looking for food because I have Biscuit,
Yeah, that's
the big
right.
guy, like right in the garden,
Mm-hmm.
you know. So if anybody really wanted something for food, they would take the 13-pound bird in the front of the property. But yeah, so somebody took them, and fortunately, Lemmy made it back. Dan didn't. Or not in the way we expected. Um, but yeah, we weren't really sure. I know that's kind of a sad story, so sorry, but
Well, but it has a
Oh.
happy ending with
it did.
Lemmy making it back and being okay.
It really did. You know, we were so happy to have him back, and we were really happy that we got Dan back, even though the circumstance was shitty, you know.
Right.
He meant a lot to us, so at least we got him back. But, you know, that's the thing, too, is with rescue, people target rescues. You know, I mean, they do. Like, and I've never understood why, even back when I rescued horses in, like, the early 2000s. You know, there's just weird people out there. So watch your flocks, I guess is the moral of the story, because you literally never know. You could go somewhere and come back and somebody will just take your birds, apparently.
Mm-hmm.
And especially if you have a higher profile like we do, I guess, right? So,
Well, the only reason I can think of that people would want to target rescues is because a rescue is a place where like the worst of humanity is on display for
Right.
everybody to see. Because like you take in the animals that have been horribly abused or horribly neglected or were turned in because of, like owner vanity or
Right.
owner selfishness, like taking in animals that that they're not actually capable of taking care of them themselves. So like, I think that's why people end up targeting them is because it's just like, here's all of the ways in which humans just cannot seem to keep a hold of themselves, like right here in one place. And
Right. Yeah, no, that's actually, I've never had it put that way. That makes a lot of sense. Yeah. It's like, cause on our end we think, oh, we're helping. But yeah, there are people who like get their rocks off, I guess, on being mean, like
yeah.
doing mean things. But it didn't stop us. It didn't stop us. A lot of people wrote me and they were worried. They're like, oh, please don't stop rescuing the birds after that happened. But we're not. And honestly, our town's so small, like whoever did that made pretty much everybody here so angry that it was unreal. Because everybody knew these birds. Well, Dan used to go to the Dollar General with me and stuff, so like he used to go to the grocery store and stuff, and everybody knew him. So, but yeah, we just, we try to, even with that, we try to get into the community and help people around here with their birds and nationwide, as well. I answer tons of messages, and that's okay. If you ever have a question, write me. But I answer tons of emails a day too with questions about chickens and stuff. So I try, I'm dispersing myself everywhere, trying to make sure I can help as many people and animals as possible. So
Well, we're certainly glad that you do what you do. And we think that all of your insight has been really helpful for listeners. So, I mean, thanks for joining us.
no
Yeah, this was
problem. I hope
great.
it's been helpful. Sometimes I think I'm just this redneck that rambles on about chickens, but so,
Not at all.
Well, I think Sam and I would be in the same boat, right?
Yeah, I think you're in good company.
I think if
Yeah.
we all got together, it would be pretty funny. Yeah, we'd probably have some
Oh,
good
yeah.
stories. So.
Well, everybody, thanks for listening. We appreciate you tuning in to our little podcast, and we hope that you learned a little more about chicken rescuing and roosters and just human beings and stuff in general. We talked about a lot. This was a
We
big
did,
mini-sode.
yeah. Yeah.
Well, bye.
Bye.
Bye.